Hello, my name is Anita Lampel. I use the She series, and I'm a JUFJ Maryland core team member and co-chair of the Montgomery County Leadership Council. We're so excited to see all of you with us here today, whether you've been part of JUFJ for a while or this is your first time joining us. We're looking forward to this being our most people-powered session yet, and to beginning the dive into the work of today. The song you've heard playing as you joined the kickoff is called We Rise and was written by Batya Levine. Batya is a musician and communal song leader whose compositions center the belief in the liberatory power of song. Cantor Rosalie Will joined us at our Schmooze in the Sukkah event in October and taught attendees this song. We'll include a song sheet and recording of the song in our follow-up email to you. Our hope is to bring this musical piece, We Rise, into our organizing spaces throughout the 2023 legislative session. As the lyric says, in hope, in prayer, we find ourselves here. Tonight, we find ourselves here as a community dedicating ourselves to justice in Maryland. I'm now going to turn things over to Ben Sachs to share a brief framing for us tonight.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Ben Sachs, he, him. I'm also the co-captain for District 45. I live in Northeast Baltimore. I'm very honored just to take a few minutes to share a few words of Torah this evening. As some of you know, over the next few Shabbatot, we'll be reading about Abraham, Sarah, and their family. But I want to look at one poignant encounter and how it can help us think about and frame the work we do over this legislative session. As some of you know, Sarah exiles Hagar. And as some of you also may know, the Hebrew scholars in the word, I have my cat. Some of the Hebrew scholars in the room might know that Hagar is spelled the same way as Hagar, the stranger, that Sarah exiles the stranger. We also know that this stranger, Hagar, is the only person in the entire Hebrew Bible that gets to name God, and she names God El Roi. So for our work, over the next few months, we need to consider how those who are fighting their own oppression like Hagar, are not just seen by God, but require our allyship to bring godliness into this world. So with that, I want to say Todah v'Bivracha, and I'm grateful for all of you being here tonight.
So the big why, our mission. JUFJ is grounded in the mission. We advance economic, racial, and social justice in Maryland and DC by educating and mobilizing our Jewish communities. At the state level, we focus on issue-based legislative campaigns in Annapolis that make real, immediate, and concrete improvements in people's lives. Through these campaigns, we develop leaders. That's you and me, the people who volunteer their time to organize with JUFJ. We build our base, which is all about developing relationships with others in our communities and bringing them into the fight for justice in Maryland. We shift the consciousness of our community. We do this by providing educational events and engaging in conversation. We work with partners led by and made up of directly impacted people to build the collective power needed to undo systemic racism and inequity. And that work we do together will be the focus for much of our agenda tonight.
Good evening. I'm Jo Schifrin. I use she, her pronouns. I live in Bethesda in District 16, and I'm on the core team. Tonight, we're going to start this program all together, celebrating our wins from the Maryland legislative session, excuse me, and previewing the road ahead. Then we'll break into 2 tracks to look at the issues we're considering working on in 2023. One track for people newer to working with JUFJ at the state level, and a second track for people who have worked with JUFJ at the state level in past years. We'll come back together toward the end of our event to give input on JUFJ's legislative agenda and learn about what's next as we build towards our strongest people-powered session yet. Throughout this agenda, we encourage you to take care of yourself and take breaks as needed. Please feel free to stretch, step away from the computer, and grab water or snacks as you need to. I'd like to highlight that there are a number of people on the call tonight with unique Zoom backgrounds. These backgrounds highlight their role in JUFJ, and each of them play an important role in our state level work. We have staff members here. We have Maryland core team members, and we have district captains. We know not everyone is able to use a Zoom background, so we're also sharing a who's who handout in the chat that goes over the leadership and teams of JUFJ. And now, I'm very excited to pass the spotlight off to the Executive Director of Jews United for Justice, Jacob Feinspan, who's going to speak about the importance of our advocacy, especially for the upcoming election and the larger movement that we are a part of. Jacob?
Thanks, Joe. I just want to recognize Joe Schifrin, who is an incredible leader all the time, and we will have the opportunity to honor her along with other leaders at JUFJ's upcoming Heschel Vision Awards, where each year we honor people who, with different ways of approaching the work and different ways of making change, can serve as role models to all of us. So you are all welcome to join us at that event. I put a link to it in the chat, and it is a fundraiser, and anybody is welcome. And there's no cost to come if you would like to come to be there to celebrate with Joe. My name is Jacob Feinspan. I have the incredible honor of serving as JUFJ's executive director. I started almost 15 years ago when JUFJ was me and one other staff person in a small corner office in the back of a building in DC. And it's been my incredible privilege to see the growth of this institution driven by the people on this call. There's an incredible staff team here at JUFJ, and that team is here because of the incredible leaders who you've heard from already and will continue to hear from throughout the evening. But particularly want to name and recognize Laura Wallace and Molly Amster, who for 7 and 8 years now have played the leading roles of our work in Montgomery County, Baltimore, and at the state level in Maryland. It's just like incredible to see what Molly and Laura, what you and the leaders on this call have built. So my name is Jacob. I use he and him pronouns. I live in Wheaton, Maryland. I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old at home who keep me very busy. I am incredibly excited to be here tonight to help ground us as we approach what's an really an exciting piece of work that's coming up. For those of you who are new to Maryland legislative work, it is different from work that happens at a city or county level in our region because the Maryland session is a 90-day sprint. So we're starting now, and over the next 5 months and a couple days, have an incredible opportunity to make change in this region. And I also know that many of us are thinking a lot about the elections that are happening on Tuesday, and particularly what the impact that those elections will have on Congress and on what shows up for many of us in our local newspaper. If you live in the Washington region, the Washington Post front page of the Post is almost always national, international issues. It's very rarely local work. And it can sometimes feel overwhelming and disheartening to have so much of our attention focused on what seems to be things that are outside of our control and outside of our power, and can make it feel hard to keep centered on the work that we're doing. And I'm here to remind us that, well, first, there's not only one way to make change in our country, but actually the story of how change in our country has been happening for the last few decades and even longer is by building on local victories that happen in one place, and then a second, and then a third, and then ripple out across our country. That's actually how change happens. It builds. It doesn't happen on high. It happens right here in our communities, in our neighborhoods. So I want to just, like, one example of that is the minimum wage. Many of you may know that the federal minimum wage has not changed in a long time, and it was almost a decade ago that, for the first time in a long time, the minimum wage changed in our region. First, it happened simultaneously in DC and Montgomery County and Prince George's County in 2013, when the minimum wage was increased to $11.50. And that sparked a set of minimum wage increases that created the movement for the Fight for 15, a $15 minimum wage that spread across our country and rippled back. And in 2016, DC passed a $15 minimum wage. In 2017, Montgomery County passed a $15 minimum wage. And in 2018, the state of Maryland legislature passed the minimum wage of $15 an hour. And then Governor Hogan vetoed it. And so in 2019, the Maryland legislature came back and overrode that veto. And in 2020, the state of Virginia passed a $15 minimum wage. Now, there are other states and other places that happened, but that's an example of the way that this work, when we win, when we make change, we are not only directly impacting the people's lives in our state who are directly impacted, we're giving momentum and hope to others who are fighting these battles, who are making change in their communities or elsewhere in the country. And those changes ripple out and impact people's lives and change the national conversation. So it's not just a minimum wage. You can see it in the work on paid sick days, around paid family and medical leave, around police reform, around justice system reform, around renters' rights. In all of those areas of work where we have worked here at the county and state level in Maryland, we have stood on the shoulders of work that's happened before us in other states and other localities. We have built on that. We've directly benefited the lives of our communities, and we've helped to build momentum for change that is yet to come. So the work we do together, the work we've done together for now many years, the work we will do together over the next 5 and 6 months, that's what's possible when we come together with our partners. You'll hear a lot, it said advocacy is a team sport. No one wins by themselves. We're part of incredible teams, incredible coalitions, and yet every member of the team has to play their part. And so we are trying, this kickoff is an opportunity for us to build the strength together, to show up in the best way that we can, to help build the momentum for incredible victories over the coming year. And in places where we don't win this year, building momentum for what will come in the future. And so I know that, especially in the land of, in a universe where COVID has been so present, it can be easy for people to feel alone, for us to feel separated from each other. And we aren't alone. We have incredible partners here, and we are part of a growing movement nationally that we at JUFJ actually help to house and support, of Jewish organizing institutions like us around the country that are making change in their own communities. So there's a collaborative of Jewish organizing institutions that are working on the ground in 20 states around the country. They're doing this work. I'm not going to say just like us, because it's different in every place. It turns out doing Jewish organizing and what's possible is different in Maryland than in North Carolina, than in Texas, than in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Minnesota. But we aren't alone. The work that we're doing is building on what others have built and supporting what others are building. So I want to just thank you for being part of that movement for change, of being part of that movement for change here, of being part of that movement for change around our country. Thank you for the work that you have done. Thank you for the work that you will be doing. And it's now my incredible honor to hand things over to Carol Stern, who is going to talk a bit about our recent wins in Maryland to remind us of what we can do when we come together, and to remind us about the impact of our organizing that you are all part of. So thank you so much. Carol, over to you.
Thank you, Jacob, and thank you for that very important framing for the power of our work. My name is Carol Stern. I use the She series. I'm the co-chair of the Justice System Reform and Immigrant Rights team, which you'll hear more about later. And I want to highlight and celebrate some of the incredible ways that people on this call, on this Zoom, and others in the JUFJ community have taken action alongside our partners to achieve some of the historic and concrete wins in Maryland. As a result of all of these meetings, testimony, action, we accomplished some major things with our partners, including winning paid family and medical leave, ensuring children cannot be questioned by police without a lawyer, and securing funding both for lawyers for people facing eviction and a facility for women moving from incarceration back into the community. Hooray, what a year, amazing. While the pandemic has and continues to present numerous challenges, we've seen our online engagement grow tremendously year after year during the pandemic, which is again amazing. Lots of people in front of their computers had time for doing advocacy. 60 JUFJs submitted 170 pieces of testimony, including a doubling of the amount of testimony just for paid family and medical leave. Amazing. Together with our partners, we took action in almost every district in the state and sent nearly 9,000 emails to legislators. And trust me, they don't ignore them when their inbox is full. And we were excited to be back in person last year with dozens of JUFJers going to Annapolis for over 20 different rallies and events. Again, amazing. We also know that our power comes from relationships, and we must recommit ourselves to building strong relationships to make transformational change. Now I'm going to turn it over to Casey Wade, who is going to share her story about the importance of relationships in our organizing and advocacy.
Thanks, Carol. So hi, folks. My name's Casey Wade, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm from Silver Spring and out of District 14. So I got involved with JUFJ in the summer of 2021. And basically what got me involved is I had moved from Ohio to Maryland for work. And I'd moved right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I kind of picked up my whole life and didn't really know it, but anybody out here. And believe it or not, my rabbi had actually told me, because he knew I was looking for a Jewish community, and he also knew that social justice work was super, super important to me. And so he actually suggested JUFJ to me. And this was my rabbi back in Ohio. And what was really kind of amazing to me about JUFJ was, I think I just kind of went onto the website originally, like try to like join a couple meetings or something that I would think would be like cool or I should join. And immediately somebody reached out to me to talk to me and set up time. Even though I was just like trying to like join meetings here or there. And it was Devorah who reached out to me. And she was really able to set up a time for me to, I think we just originally did Zoom because of, it was the pandemic. But what I loved when she reached out to me is she really took the time to get to know me, to really figure out what was important to me and what specifically about, like, what specific issues were important to me. And then she helped me to find kind of my niche within JUFJ and the groups that I could join. And I really genuinely felt like she was invested in getting to know me, and not just to get me into JFJ, but to know me on a personal level, because relationship building is so very important in this work. We have so many issues that we care about and want to work on, but to be really strong in doing these issues and going out and working on these issues, especially during the legislative sessions, we also need to know each other and to know how we can help each other grow and thrive together. And so I felt like I said, not only does she get to know my personal interests, but me on a personal level, so she can check in with me and also continue to reach out to me about different things going on, not just within JUFJ, but also our partners. And it was also that type of relationship building with Deborah that helped me to even learn about Don't Kvetch Organize, which I was in the last group that just went through, which really helped me to learn even more about the importance of relationship building, how to reach out to not only within our group here in JUFJ, but local organizing groups, our legislators, the importance of really building those relationships so that when we go and do the work, we're not doing this with strangers. We're doing this with people that we've met, that we have taken the time to get to know, and they know that we're coming from a very genuine and real spot. And ultimately, I really just think JUFJ does a great job of working with, like I said, our local organizations too. And we're really good at knowing when to let those groups take the lead and when we can kind of step back and follow their lead. And that once again comes all back to this organizing and relationship building. So I guess if there's really anything I can say to everyone here tonight, really take the time to get to know each other, really get the time to try to build relationships, not only here, but as we move forward into this next legislative session, really take the time to try to learn. If you have the ability, and if this is what you want to do, try to take time to talk with legislators and work with the other groups, because when we can all work together, we can really get so much more done, and there's so much more support that way. So thank you for letting me talk tonight, folks.
Great. Thanks, Casey, and thank you, everybody. My name is Eliana. I use the She series, and I'm a Maryland organizer with JUFJ. I'm so excited to be with all of you tonight. So in some of the photos, some of you were sporting JUFJ shirts or buttons or hats or other things. One thing I want to put a pin in for folks is that we're really excited to announce that when we take photos in the coming session, we will be taking plenty of photos. We'll have really new, exciting JUFJ gear. We'll have new sweatshirts and JUFJ winter hats. So in the follow-up email from this event, we'll include a form to so you can let us know if you're interested in purchasing a sweatshirt or a hat. So with our screenshot done, we're going to split up now into two tracks. There's one option for folks who are new to doing statewide work with JUFJ, and one option for folks who have done statewide work with JUFJ in the past years.
So I'm Anita Lampel. I use the She series, and I'm a Maryland core team leader and co-chair of the Montgomery County Leadership Council. I want to thank you again for attending the kickoff and for your interest in learning more about how to get involved with our statewide advocacy work. Here's what we're going to be covering in this breakout session. We're going to review JUFJ's organizing model, share our statewide core issues and agenda setting process, provide an overview of Annapolis, and discuss how you can get engaged with this work. Now, we might be using some acronyms and shorthand today, so feel free to ask for clarification in the chat if you need it. You can also put questions in the chat, and we'll either answer them as we go along or save them for our Q&A at the end of the session. Jews United for Justice works in coalition and partnership with grassroots and advocacy groups, especially those led by directly impacted people and communities, to build and win issue campaigns. With a grounding in Jewish values and a focus on racial equity, we build people power to achieve specific goals, such as passing legislation and increasing local government investments in key programs and policies. We began in Washington, D.C. in 1998, and then expanded to Montgomery County in 2006 and Baltimore City and County in 2014. This is our 9th year working at the state level in Maryland with involvement of people from across the state. Since this is JUFJ's 9th cycle of state level advocacy in Maryland, our agenda setting process is therefore different than it was early on, because we're not starting from a blank slate. Our approach is based on our commitment to racial equity and disrupting systems of oppression, which includes centering the leadership of our partners and being as transparent as possible about our agenda selection process. We all know that federal change can come slowly, but local change is a real way to make a difference and expand the boundaries of what's possible. The time, money, and people needed to make local change is much more achievable than what's needed at the federal level. These local wins are important because, as you heard earlier from Jacob Feinspan, they set the stage for larger wins. For example, after we won minimum wage and earned sick leave in Montgomery County, the success of those wins made it possible to win them statewide. One state win makes a model for other states to adopt those wins. And when enough states win higher wage and sick leave, it makes federal change even more achievable. I'm going to turn it over now to Heidi.
Hi there. Welcome everyone. My name is Heidi Rhodes, and I use the She series, and I'm on the Montgomery County Leadership Council. On the state level, I'm on the Justice System Reform and Immigration Rights team, and I'm a District 14 co-captain. There's a lot to share about how the Maryland legislative process works and how we organize during the legislative session, which is why we'll offer a General Assembly 101 training later this year about how things work in Annapolis, and more on that soon. For today, we want to provide a very brief overview of how Annapolis works as it relates to our agenda setting process. Maryland's legislative session is very short. As Jacob said, it's only 90 days and goes from early January to early April. During those 3 months, things move very quickly as the legislature considers an incredible number of bills. In 2022, more than 3,100 bills were introduced and almost 800 became law. The Maryland legislature has 2 chambers, the Senate and the House of Delegates, and in most districts there's 1 senator and 3 delegates, although some districts have only 1 or 2 delegates. If you don't already know your district, please use the link we're putting in the chat now to look it up based on your address. You have the most power with your legislators in your district, so it's really critical that you know which district you're in. The full state legislature, along with all statewide elected officials, are up for election this year. With redistricting and a new governor, we expect positions and timelines to shift more this year than in any other year. There will also be an entirely new budget process this year, which gives legislators greater influence over our state spending. The outcome of the upcoming election will have a huge impact on our issues and our advocacy. One thing that you'll hear a lot at JUFJ with work in Annapolis is a reference to leadership. This is a reference to the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. The Speaker of the House is Adrian Jones from Baltimore County, District 10, and the Senate President is Bill Ferguson from Baltimore City, District 46. We don't expect either of these to change with the election next week. These 2 positions are the leaders of their respective chambers and are very powerful. They set the agenda for the legislative session, appoint legislators to leadership positions, and make committee assignments. All bills that are introduced during the legislative session get referred to a committee by the Speaker of the House and the Senate President for initial consideration and debate, which means that the legislators who chair those committees are very powerful because they determine which bills get hearings, when those hearings happen, and if a bill comes up for a vote. As we determine where to target our advocacy, we most often focus on the leadership and the members of the committees where our bills get assigned.
So at the core of all the issue area organizing that JUFJ does is the fact that we do this this advocacy in partnership with other organizations and in coalitions that are made up of and representative of the people who are most directly impacted by the issues. Some of the partners that we're going to mention frequently throughout the examples we'll share this evening are the ACLU, CASA, and Out for Justice. The ACLU is well known for their national civil liberties work, and locally we partner with them on issues related to transforming public safety, immigrant justice, and reforming the court and prison system. CASA is the largest grassroots immigrant advocacy organization in the Mid-Atlantic region and is building power across the country. JUFJ works with CASA on immigrant justice, transforming public safety, and renters' rights. Out for Justice organizes Marylanders affected by the justice system to change how incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people are treated in the state. And they are a key partner for JUFJ's court and prison reform. Now, JUFJ's staff and volunteer leaders attend coalition meetings to represent JUFJ, strategize, and build trusting relationships. Now we're going to look at just a few of JUFJ's wins throughout the years, which help demonstrate the power of our collective action. This slide shows just a few legislative wins that JUFJ fought for alongside our coalition partners. We know from these experiences that local organizing works and can help shift power in meaningful ways to make lasting changes in people's lives. We are constantly learning from this work and developing ourselves to show up stronger and more effectively in support of our partners. As we dive deeper into our agenda-setting process, we want to share a few key definitions that are important to this process. JUFJ leader is a JUFJ volunteer. A partner is an organization that JUFJ works with on campaigns such as ACLU and CASA. Issue areas. These are broad categories of advocacy, such as labor justice. Campaign. This is a specific legislative or budget priority, such as passing the Time to Care Act. MDGA, that's the Maryland General Assembly, which meets in legislative session from January to April annually. Maryland Core Team. That's a group of JUFJ volunteer leaders from across Maryland who work with staff to make key strategic decisions leading up to and during the state legislative session.
I'm now going to talk a little bit about our framework, the framework for the Maryland General Assembly in 2023, how we do our agenda setting. We build on our organizing and advocacy from the past few years in the issue areas of labor justice, renters' rights, transforming public safety, immigrant rights, and court and prison reform. We will prioritize deepening relationship with existing partners and coalitions and honoring the commitments we have made to them. We'll also balance our time between advocacy, pushing for our issue priorities, and organizing, bringing in new people and developing leaders, because we need both to win. And finally, in order to ensure the right balance of advocacy and organizing, we will engage in a full scope of work on a limited number of campaigns, our legislation and budget priorities, to maximize our effectiveness. We'll impact other campaigns in a more limited way by submitting official JUFJ testimony and or signing JUFJ's name to a list of supporters. We'll now talk about the agenda setting process. So for 2023, it follows. Over the summer, staff and the Maryland Core team members assessed JUFJ's capacity and determined for this Maryland General Assembly 2023 session, we can work on 6 full scope of work campaigns. These are going to be decided through this process we're doing starting tonight, and 2 implementation campaigns, Time to Care and Women's Pre-Release. From July to October 2022, staff and the Maryland Core team members asked current coalition partners for their priorities and where JUFJ could most strategically engage in supporting their campaigns. Now in November, staff and Maryland core team were sharing a list of possible priorities with the JUFJ community at this kickoff to find out where our community is excited to put time and energy. And based on the kickoff feedback that we get tonight, staff and the Maryland core team will create our Maryland General Assembly 2023 agenda. The agenda will be shared with the community in December and then with legislators in district meetings in December and January. When coalition priorities change leading up to or during session, as they do every single year, staff and the Maryland core team will make adjustments to our agenda and update the community. We expect more changes than in past years because of the election. Legislators and partners are both delayed in their planning, and it's likely a number of legislators will leave to join the new governor's administration.
Now, part of the goals of this breakout session is to get your input on which issues you feel motivated by so that we can narrow the list of campaigns that we'll be working on. At the end of the session, when we return to the main room, we'll ask you to fill out a feedback form to let us know what issues you're excited to work on and how you would like to be involved in taking action. The Maryland core team and staff will use the feedback form responses to narrow the list of our areas of focus for the coming session. It's like choosing your favorite child. As we have said, JUFJ in Maryland's core issue areas haven't changed in many years, but the specific campaigns have changed. These core issue areas were our starting place for setting our agenda for this year. Our current core issue areas are labor and housing justice, under which we find labor justice and renters' rights, the justice system reform and immigration rights, to include immigrant rights, transforming public safety, and court and prison reform. We're now going to share a bit more about the potential bills and funding campaigns that we're considering working on this year. While you listen, think about what sparks your interest and what you might be motivated to work on with JUFJ. And you can follow along in the document that we're linking in the chat or just follow along on the slides. Renters' rights. Now, as you can see on this slide, and which you can also see in all the subsequent slides, there are teachings from our Jewish traditions that help provide guiding principles and values for each of the issues that we're organizing around. The fact that these teachings remain relevant thousands of years later underscores the importance of continuing the fight for justice. Renters' rights is something that JUFJ has been working on for a number of years, both locally and at the state level. The ongoing pandemic has highlighted both the overwhelming need for better services and support for renters and the critical need to provide safe and affordable housing for all. Rents are at an all-time high, and eviction rates have risen to pre-pandemic levels, and advocates fear that it will soon exceed pre-pandemic levels. Evictions are traumatic for individuals, children, and communities. And so JUFJ works on housing justice at the state level through Renters United Maryland, a statewide coalition of grassroots organizations, tenant organizers, advocacy groups, and legal service providers. This coalition has helped to introduce some of the most comprehensive housing justice legislation ever considered in Annapolis. Unfortunately, renters' rights remains a difficult topic to make progress on, despite the critically urgent situation renters are facing across the state during COVID. To address the current crisis and to push for long-term change, the coalition is considering work on the following pieces of legislation. Emergency rental assistance to keep people housed by maintaining pandemic rental assistance and creating more permanent funding for long-term assistance for people who are at risk for eviction. Access to counsel in eviction, which continues the work to ensure strong implementation through funding and regulation of Maryland's access to counsel in evictions programs which serve low-income renters. Tenant Safety Act, which is still in development, so the details are not confirmed, but it would likely include establishing a right for renters to organize based on the Tenant Justice Act of 2022. Rent stabilization, to address rocketing rent rates and keep people housed by building on local efforts, for example, in Montgomery and Prince George's counties, to establish statewide rent stabilization, and rental licensing, which ensures safe and habitable housing for renters by bringing back legislation from 2022, that would be Senate Bill 563, to uphold local rental licensing requirements by prohibiting unlicensed landlords from using the court's expedited eviction procedures.
As many of, if not all of you already know, JUFJ and our partners in the Time to Care Coalition successfully won the passage of the Time to Care Act last year. Really good effort there, which will establish one of the most comprehensive paid family and medical leave programs in the country. It took a number of years to get this passed, and the grassroots push last year secured this huge win for nearly 2.5 million workers in our state. As passed last year, Maryland's Time to Care Act establishes a family and medical leave insurance program through which employees may take up to 12 weeks of paid leave from work to care for the birth, adoption, or fostering of a child, to care for themselves or family members with serious health or medical conditions, or to address the needs resulting from a military family member's deployment. During the leave, employees receive partial wage replacement, and lower wage workers will receive a higher percentage of their income than higher paid workers. The Time to Care Coalition is made up of subject matter experts, advocacy groups, service providers, business owners, and unions. While we won the passage of the Time to Care Act last year, the coalition is looking to pass additional legislation this year to ensure implementation of the strongest possible program, including an equitable contribution rate for workers, which wasn't locked in last year's bill, particularly low-income and tipped workers.
The Immigrant Rights is something that JUFJ has worked on for many years alongside our partners at CASA and a large network of allies. While many view Maryland as a safe and welcoming place for immigrants, we know from our partners and from people within our own communities that many Maryland immigrants are not safe. Hundreds of our neighbors are separated from their families and incarcerated for civil immigration violations, with no access to a lawyer to advocate on their behalf. We must pass legislation so that nobody, regardless of immigration status, has to fear deportation or family separation when they seek to fully participate in our society, and so that everyone has access to the support and services that they need to thrive. This year, our partners have identified two key priorities to pursue through state-level legislation: access to Medicaid, which opens up Medicaid to all eligible Marylanders, regardless of immigration status, and Affordable Care Act inclusion, which opens up the Maryland Health Care Exchange to all Marylanders, regardless of immigration status.
It's so central that our sacred texts declare that destroying even one life is akin to destroying a whole world. Unfortunately, we know that in Maryland, lives are destroyed every day, especially Black and brown lives, by our system of policing. And despite historic police accountability reforms passed by the Maryland General Assembly in recent years, community oversight of the police needs to be strengthened, especially in Baltimore City. Judaism's ethic of mutual care calls us to boldly rethink policing and transform public safety in our region. These areas are ones in which we anticipate bills that we and our partners in the Maryland Coalition for Justice and Police Accountability might support. We've worked on legislation like this in the past with these partners, including the ACLU, Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, the NAACP, and others. Defend Anton's Law. This opposes efforts to undermine and weaken Anton's Law, which was enacted to create more transparency of police records and accountability for their actions. Independent investigatory powers for Police Accountability Board. This introduces enabling legislation allowing local jurisdictions to give their police accountability boards the authority to hire independent investigators to investigate misconduct complaints. Reduce unnecessary police interactions and ban odor searches. These would prohibit police from using the odor of cannabis as a basis to stop individuals and perform a warrantless search of a vehicle. Baltimore City local control. If Baltimore City's ballot question H passes, there will likely be legislation to restore local control of the city's police department. And Baltimore City Civilian Review Board. There will likely be legislation introduced at the request of Mayor Scott to dissolve the Baltimore City Civilian Review Board. This is something we and our partners are opposed to, but a strategy is yet to be determined.
Court and prison reform. Now, Black people, people experiencing homelessness or mental health crises, those in poverty, and young people facing marginalization are disproportionately targeted for criminalization and are treated with discrimination from their first contact with the system all the way through their life after release. We support the prevention of unjust arrests, prosecutions, conviction, and incarceration, a fair parole process, and helping people return to their families and communities from a place of incarceration. The following two areas of focus are from partners in two different coalitions that JUFJ participates in, the Women's Pre-Release Equity Coalition and the Maryland Youth Justice Coalition. Women's pre-release facility implementation. Now, while we successfully push to pass legislation that requires the establishment of a women's pre-release center, there are currently none. The full and effective implementation of this law requires continued advocacy for accountability and full funding in the state budget. Pre-release programs help people nearing the end of their prison sentences to secure employment, housing, drug treatment, and mental health services and family support. This work is led by partners at Out for Justice and the Maryland Justice Project. Ending auto charge. Now, this would ensure that youth in Maryland are not automatically charged as adults. This bill was introduced last year, and our partners in the Maryland Youth Justice Coalition want to bring it back this year to protect young people and make sure that our court system treats children as children and not as adults.
As with many sectors of our society, the Maryland General Assembly was forced to shift its practices to new online formats during the pandemic to continue functioning and to ensure that our government remains accessible and accountable. The shift to streaming all committee hearings and voting sessions, as well as allowing for virtual testimony, made our state's legislative process much more inclusive. Without the option for virtual testimony, the majority of Marylanders are prevented from making their voices heard in Annapolis. However, the General Assembly now plans to return to pre-pandemic policies and remove the option of virtual participation. A coalition of advocacy organizations is being formed by Common Cause Maryland to push for the General Assembly to permanently move to a hybrid format as a means of ensuring that we have accessible and democratic legislative process. This will not be a legislative campaign, but it is instead an effort to influence policy decisions being made by leadership in the General Assembly. And you can keep doing that while I'm speaking. There are many ways to get involved with the work being done by JUFJ and our coalition partners. And we're excited to see so many people who are already engaged and many who want to get involved. Here are just a few ways you can get involved. First, you can join a pre-session meeting with other JUFJers in your state district and that district's legislators. These meetings will happen from mid-December through mid-January and are coordinated by district captains. As I said before, I'm a co-captain for District 14, and so I'll be doing some of that coordinating. We'll ask you about your interest in these meetings in the feedback form that you'll complete when we go back to the main room. You can check out our upcoming Annapolis Academy trainings that will cover everything from the details of the legislative process to how to effectively tell our stories in legislator meetings to how to provide testimony on legislation this year. You can sign up for Annapolis Academy trainings in the feedback form, and you can learn more about the sessions using the link that Devorah just put in the chat. You can attend our Maryland community meetings, which will be starting on December 21st. These meetings are where the labor and housing justice and the Justice System Reform and Immigration Rights teams meet to discuss updates to campaigns, develop strategy, and take action to move our efforts forward. You can also write testimony for public hearings, which is a critical way to demonstrate support of our issues to legislators. Your testimony can be based on your personal professional experience or on your values and interests as a concerned community member. Everyone's testimony is valuable. You can let us know your interest in writing testimony on the feedback form as well. And I just want to let you know, we have people who mentor you through this process. I was scared to start writing testimony and I got a lot of help, and it's easier than it seems.
And Anita is one of our fabulous testimony mentors, just such an incredible writer. So thank you, Anita and Heidi, for sharing that.
You can also complete action alerts, which are forms JUFJ creates that allow you to send emails to your legislators with just a couple of clicks. These emails are customizable. I struggle on that word. These emails are customizable so that you can add your own story to strengthen outreach to your legislators. And finally, you can always sign up to meet with a JUFJ staff member or an experienced leader to learn more about JUFJ as an organization, our campaigns, and hear about other ways to get involved. You can request a meeting, fill out the form we're pasting in the chat, or mark your interest on the feedback form. This is the one-on-one that Casey was talking about at the beginning of our session tonight.
Welcome back, everybody.
Amazing. Okay, great. Let's turn it over to Louise, who's going to close us out.
I'm Louise Weissman. She, her are my pronouns, and I am a co-captain for District 22 and in Prince George's County, and I live in Greenbelt. Now that we've spent some time in breakout rooms learning about our possible campaign priorities, we're excited to come back together to get your feedback. So I'm going to go over some dates, important dates over the next couple of months. As you can see from the slide, there will be ongoing activity, a lot of ongoing activity happening over the next few months. There are a couple of events and trainings that I want to preview before you fill out the form. On November 10th, in January, November to January, we will be offering trainings as part of our Annapolis Academy series. The first in the series is Legislators Meetings 101 on November 16th. This is an important training for those who have not attended pre-session legislative meetings in the past years. More about those in a minute. On November 20th, as our executive director talked about, we are having our annual Herschel Awards. This event really highlights the work we've done with our partners over the last year and honors some of the people who made that possible. This year, we are honoring Montgomery County Leader Joe Schifrin and Maryland State Senator Jill Carter. From mid-December to mid-January, we will be scheduling and holding our pre-session meetings with legislators across the state. We hope you can attend these critical meetings to communicate our priorities, to help build our power, and to strengthen our relationships with our lawmakers. Let us know in the feedback form if you're interested in attending the meeting for your district, and if you'd like to share a story or take an active part in the program. The storytelling will be around why you care about our issues. For those who plan to tell stories or take another role in the legislative meetings, we will be offering storytelling training at Our Issues, Our Legislators. We will send out more information about all of this in the follow-up email. Our first statewide Maryland community meeting is December 21st, when we will be holding a training around the budget process in Annapolis and checking in on your pre-session legislative meetings. All of this work will lead to the start of the legislative session. which begins on January 11th. So mark your calendars and come join us in Annapolis in the morning to greet legislators, and then later for us to meet online that evening for a community meeting. Well, Joseph's already put the link in for the feedback form. I don't know if we need to link it again, and you will notice it's a little bit longer than our standard form. It lists the potential campaigns for the upcoming session. Please select the ones you are most excited to spend your time and energy on. You can select as many or as few campaign options as you wish, and you don't have to select campaigns in all the issue areas. Please let us know in the form if you're interested in telling stories at the pre-session legislative meetings in December and January, or writing testimony for hearings in January and February. We will be offering Annapolis Academy trainings to help you both with legislator meeting storytelling as well as writing testimony. If you have any questions, comments, or concern that you want to share with us, the form will also give you the space to share your concerns. The final section of the form is the interest form that we ask you to fill out one time each year. If you already filled it out at one of our summer meet and greets or the Sukkot schmooze, you don't need to fill it out again unless something has changed that you want to do. As a reminder, we will not be able to take on all of the campaigns listed in the commitment card. Your feedback on this form will be crucial to helping us decide which campaigns we take on. So please take the time to fill it out now before we end the call together.
All right. Heidi, close us out.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining tonight and for being part of this agenda setting process and for hanging in with us for these last few minutes. We'll be sending you all a follow-up email after the elections with materials from tonight and some next steps as we move forward with our pre-session legislator meetings in December and January. We're all really excited to have you involved in making this the most people-powered legislative session yet. And if you have any questions for staff, please feel free to stay on the call. We're officially closing the meeting at this time, so if you don't have any additional questions, thank you so much for being here and have a great night.